I don't really know whether our guest needs any introduction.
Yes, I do.
But you do.
Yes, please, build me up.
Yeah, yeah. Brian, star of stage and screen, Shakespearean actor, mountaineer, urban spaceman.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Terrestrial astronaut.
All those things.
Astronaut and mountaineer. So what can I say? I mean,
I don't know. That's.
Introduce you.
I think that's it. You said it all.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Blessed.
It's nice to be here. I don't normally have notes, ladies and gentlemen, but I thought, as you're all kind of cerebral geniuses, and I didn't know it was going to be Colin Pillinger or Hawking here. I forget Hawking. Rang me up about a year ago and said, because I thought it was Ken Branagh. Because acting's also. And now they want to put me to 60,000 feet into space. What do you think, Brian? I said, well, you're going to fucking die anyway. So you might as well go up and die in space. Ha, ha, ha. Brian Blessed says I'm going to fucking die, so I might as well go up anyway. So I'm glad to see that Hawking's not here. Or Pillinger is not here. What do I say? I mean, looking at you, when I first went to Everest in 1990, I'm not going to talk to you as a scientist. I mean, you know more about it than I do. There are people here, there are doctors, professors, etc. No. No. You know more about that. I'm speaking to the converted anyway. So I'm just going to talk as a Yorkshire boy who first discovered space and what it means to me and the problems I have with the public and people about space. Government officials and all kinds of things, members of parliament and so forth. You know, as Pillinger said, oh, he'd like to just get the whole lot of them and bloody shoot them. You know, that's says Colin Pillinger. But in 1990, I first went to Everest to follow in the footsteps of George Lee Mallory. And I wore the clothes rather like this. That he wore, and with the world's best climbers, we made Galahad of Everest. He was called Galahad, George Lee Mallory, who disappeared on Everest in 1924, 600 feet from the summit. And we made this film, I followed in his footsteps, not to find his body, but to pay tribute to these great climbers and their great ideals to a certain extent that we've lost today in society. And the expedition was an enormous success. Lots of climbers in it, great climbers like Messner and Bonington. They were all in it, Edmund Hillary, they all, Lord Hunter, everyone was in it. And it was, of course, going to be impossible for me, an actor, to remotely, at 16.5 stone, 17 stone 2, to be going up the north side of Everest. And, of course, I proved them all wrong, which was lovely. And I got to exactly 28,000 feet underneath the second step at 54 years of age, right where Mallory disappeared. We were only allowed to we got to that, and that's where the film was completed and so forth. So it was a great success. It won about 24 Grand Prix, not for me, for the director. It was put on, I won the Tenerife Film Festival. Now, I'll never forget, nobody's ever won the Tenerife Film Festival. The BBC phoned me up and said, you've got to go to Tenerife. I'm leading up to you now, right? And space. You've got to go to Tenerife. You've won the best actor in the film festival. I said, what for? You know, it's because you got Kevin Costner in Dance with Wolves and Lewis in Last of the Mohicans, Daniel Day-Lewis. What for? They said, Galahad of Everest. I said, but I don't bloody act in it. I just climb a mountain. So I had to go there. Thank you very much. It's one of my best acting performances. How you explain, which did happen, me going from 17 stone 2 to 9 stone 4 is what happened during the film. The weight loss and the muscle loss. So I came back. It was a great success. The film was put on television and the critics adored it. And he won all these Grand Prix for John Paul Davidson and so forth. So I attended the Royal Geographical Society and it was packed with all the world's great explorers, with all they were all there. Your Boningtons, your Reinhold Messner, they were all there. Princess Anne and so forth. And I came and I could feel, what is this sod doing in our territory? And I looked at them and I said, So this is exactly what I said. So sorry, you probably have to edit this, won't you? So I actually looked at them all, Bollington, and I said, "What in fuck's name am I going to say to you lot?" Which of course brought the house down, and it got a standing ovation, and that was it. They all stood up and cheered and cheered and cheered. And it was the beginning. They said, you know, they understood then. We became one, and gradually throughout the evening started to tell them things about Everest that they didn't know. It has about 20 different names. They didn't know the names, or what the Dalai Lama called it. And so, to a certain extent, I'm standing in front of you now, and what the bloody hell I'm not going to say F, what the bloody hell am I going to say to you? And you come out here this evening. Now, I'm going to start from the beginning, being a Yorkshire lad, a son of a coal miner, a coal hewer. My father, I lived between Doncaster and Barnsley in a place called Goldthorpe. My father was opening fast bowler for Yorkshire. He taught Fred Truman his cutters in cricket and so forth. And it was a great time. It was the war years. I mean, I was born in 1936. So all the coal miners in the area, they had crystal sets. They made crystal sets so they could listen to the German wolf packs. And we had the wooden radio. No televisions, of course. We had the 2 local cinemas. And so the radios had the War of the Worlds, and the Lost World. And the BBC did these programs, and a journey to the other side of the sun. And we had Hoyle's lectures. Imagine Red Oil with his voice like that talking about space each week on the radio. So it's a madly exciting time. The BBC the BBC radio now is not as good. Our radio acting isn't as good. We're not as well, because there was no television. And so they were brilliant vocally. And their special effects were marvellous. I'll never forget the Martians dying. Eventually, Nicholson looks up at Trafalgar Square and realizes they're swaying and they're dying. And they were whooping to each other. Woo! 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 As these Martians, you realize they were beginning to die because of the bacillus that was killing them. And there was that kind of background. But I was sat at 6 years of age in my little infant school, and Mrs. Gummersill, who's still alive, I've just filmed her, because I'm making this film The Flying Hawkman. So I'm bringing space in from a different angle. It's going to be called The Flying Hawkman, which of course I am. And when I was 6 years of age, I sat in the classroom, and she said to us all, "You know, there are other worlds besides the Earth." I thought, what? What? There are other worlds besides the Earth? And did you mention Mars in particular? And I painted it. It was red. I painted this lovely planet, this red planet. I wanted to know all about it. You know, astonishing. Can we go there? You know, I go to Leicester now. Leicester's up the space there, and you meet children of that age, and they don't understand. They're 7, 8, 9 years of age. They don't understand why we're not on Mars. Why are we not on Mars? Why are we not there? They almost have a race memory. They want to go into space. And I had this at 6 years of age. I mean, it's astonishing. And in the cinema, you had films like The Man from Planet X, and you had Rocket Ship XM, Destination Moon, First Men in the Moon, the Jules Verne, and things like this. And Forbidden Planet, which of course was based on The Tempest, Prospero. It was based on the Shakespeare story. I think it's quite wonderful, Forbidden Planet. I love the stillness in it. And then there was the Angry Planet, this wonderful film about Mars, in which as they went there, the space travelers from the Earth, everywhere they went, they'd stop for a while, and that would become activated, that part of the country, and then would not be activated, as if something was giving them a little bit to see. And so it's an amazing film, Angry Red Planet. I said, and Rocket Ship XM, wonderful and vital. And as I said, to have the War of the Worlds. So one grew up with this. And of course, nearby, in the Empire Cinema, we had, of course, Flash Gordon. And Flash Gordon hit a tremendous chord with me, because Buster Crabbe is in it, in black and white. Amazing. Excellent actor. He was actually the 100 yards gold medalist in the Olympics. He was 6'4", a blonde hair, wonderful, and a tremendous looking, marvellous cast, beautifully directed in black and white. Whenever he was wounded or he was in trouble, the pain, he had wonderful pain. As Flash Gordon, he was amazing kind of pain, and he was a great athlete, and it's beautifully done. So you had the titles in Flash Gordon of that wonderful Liszt's music, da-dum, da-dum, dum-dum, and then the lovely rockets, vroom, 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 vroom. And always throughout the scenes, if you ever watch it, in the background to these marvellous choreographed scenes, you hear this ooh, 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 this kind of sinister thing of Mongo. And so this excited us. And to see the man from Planet X and Rocket Ship XM so this, and Flash Gordon, to see we never knew what was going to happen at the end of each episode. And of course, at the end of each episode, I would kind of come out of the cinema. We didn't know what would happen. Would Flash be destroyed by the ray? Would he be destroyed by the dinosaur? Would the clay men? There were annihilotons in it, walking bombs, men who walked. What have we got today? In terrorism, walking bombs. They were showing these annihilotons who had bombs. You got near and they just blew you up. Of course, Flash, as he approached one, it blew him up. And that's the end of that episode. Flash Gordon's dead. Of course, the next one, you looked, because he's very powerful. And it hit him, flattened him, but of course, he recovered. And there were clay men who spoke backwards. Wonderful clay men in the hillside. And so, does this give you a great taste? I used to ferment with longing to go into space because of these films, because of our teachers, because of Hoyle. I attended one of Fred Hoyle's at the age of 7, 8, attended a lecture. I was galvanized with what he said about the speed of the galaxies and so forth. What's 57,000 miles a second? Astonishing that we're moving at that kind of speed. You know, I always see it. I brought this along. I got this, the Dalai Lama gave it to me. I'll jump ahead for a second. I was talking to Zubrin, who was in charge of Mars Direct. He's now making huts on Devon Island, and he's training the cosmonauts and astronauts for Mars. And he's developing the new Martian prototype suits, which I wore one in Tenerife, in Reunion Island. And I met him. And when you talk to Zubrin, this great rocket scientist, I mean, he quotes the Bhagavad Gita and Genesis as he's talking about redshift. That's how he talked. He talked like that about Ryan Genesis and the Bhagavad Gita, and you hear Zubrin and the head of NASA seconding it and saying, Brian, yeah, there is no Big Bang. That's goddamn crap. Not bang, but a great radioactive breath. That's breathing out. Everything is breath, Brian. He said, everything, this is Zubrin talking to me on Devon Island in the Arctic. Everything is breath. And the universe breathes. Plants breathe. The universe is breathing. And so therefore he said, as in the Bhagavad Gita, the Creator says to Brahma, create the universe, as you have done so many times before, but have forgotten. And Brahma, of course, comes out of the lotus and creates the universe. And there's Brahma. And the universe goes out and he's breathing. And then at an appointed time, it will be sucked back in again. And Brahma, then it will close up. And that's the way Zubrin speaks. I mean, the head of NASA, you know, I mean, everyone's so happy. I mustn't jump again. I'll come to NASA in a second. But, so therefore, when I was a child, I fermented with longing, which I now has increased in me. There's a part in me that aches all the time, that I want to go into space, that I want to go home, that we are the children of stardust, made from that star, which you know. And I just, as a child, would lie in the garden and look up, and because there was no light pollution in the 1940s, we had a war with the Germans, of course, and nearby Sheffield. But I'd look up and dream, could I, like Edgar Rice's Burroughs' hero, go to Mars? How can we go? Because Wernher von Braun had started his rockets and so forth. And we had many scientists in Britain too, which I think is a terrible tragedy that they've not been developed. And I'd lie in the grass and there see the hatcheries of Orion, the nebula Orion, full of young stars, fertilizing, making love. Sex abandoned in Orion's nebula. And there, hatcheries of trillions and trillions and trillions of stars. And I wanted to go there. There's a poem by Masefield, I'll try and remember it, called Lollington Downs. It's a stanza. And he says, I could not sleep for thinking of the sky, the unending sky with all its million suns turning their planets everlastingly in nothing. If I could sail that nothing, I should pass through silence and emptiness and dark stars passing. And then in the darkness, see a point of gloss burn to a glow and glare and keep amassing and rage into a sun with wandering planets and drop behind. And as I proceed, see its last light on its last moon's granite die to a night that would be night indeed. Night where I might travel 1,000,000 years in nothing, not even death, not even tears. John Masefield. And that was what I was brought up with as a child, this longing to see it all. Was it possible? You know, and I had to talk to my father about it. I mean, in chemistry, I wasn't very good at it, but we made a rocket. And it blew up, and I blew all the bloody windows out of the science room. And then I'm put in detention for blowing up the bloody classroom in desperation to create my own rocket to go there, always wanting to go into space. And then more and more and more discoveries. I mean, Christ, the other day. I mean, you look and listen to television, and it's Ken Barlow and Deirdre. And the other day, and it was that much in the newspapers, Cassini and Huygens, after 7 years, approaches Saturn. And Cassini, they managed to. It was all going wrong slightly, and they managed to isolate it and separate. And Cassini went, continuing as it is now, around Saturn, photographing. And Huygens went down with a parachute, with his camera. And for the first time, we saw Titan's surface. It's a young Earth. It has mountains as large and as big, of course, as Everest. It has rivers, hundreds of rivers, mountains. Parts of it look like Africa and Europe as we see it. It's just a bit bigger than, of course, than the Earth, and it has this tremendous atmosphere of helium and nitrogen, like the Earth was 3.5 billion years ago. So it's a young Earth, growing. And that's, I'll check my notes so I kind of make my points. Hold on there, ladies and gentlemen, so I don't miss things. I've done all that, Space Soldiers and Flash Gordon and Destination Moon, etc., etc., etc. And of course, I encouraged myself as an actor to be, I searched out in desperation to be in science fiction movies. So of course, I mean, everybody wanted to be in Star Wars, and I'm in The Phantom Menace as the King of the Gungans, Boss Nass. You know, I am the great big Boss Nass, you know, who says things like, "Misa like these." Maybe we can be friends. I remember George Lucas, I did many, many scenes with my Gungans, and he said, "Brian, the Jedi are going to kneel in front of you, Brian. They're all going to kneel in front of you. And you're Boss Nass, you're 20 feet high. Okay." And he said, "I want you to bring this to a great conclusion. What can you give me?" So they beg you to help, and I go, you know, "Maybe we can be friends." I did that. He said, "Jesus, you mad bastard." And a few weeks later he said, "We finished that sequence, Brian." He said, "And that cost $375,000, that me doing that with my face for the special effects." He said, it's great, Brian, but Jesus, man, it cost us $375,000. All the spume. Of course, his head's that big. So it was wonderful to be with him and talk to him. I mean, he can't direct for toffee. I mean, he just can't direct. I mean, I said, "George, you can't do bugger all. You can't direct at all, George." "Oh, Brian, I know. What the hell?" He couldn't tell me what my character was. "Well, I think you're just maybe a giant frog." I said, "What can I say? I've been to the Royal Shakespeare Camp, the National Theatre, and I end up being a frog?" He said, "No, Brian, a salamander, Brian, a salamander." But he just puts cameras everywhere, and he trusts you to do it. But of course, he has a wonderful imagination as regards all those landscapes, this great imagination, but he trusts the actors. And everybody, of course, wanted to be in Star Wars. People come and play small parts. You know, top actors, you'll see them, you don't notice them. They've got one line in a little spaceship, you know, "Coming in, copy that." And that's all they bloody say. Yeah. You know, because they want to be in it, they've got some goggles on, you can't see who it is anyway. It's Derek Jacobi, and copy that. And I'm in Phantom Menace, I can't bloody see you at all. Or which one was that? You know, or just, or do something like that. You know, so everyone wanted to be in Star Wars. But I was in that, and of course, Space 1999. I was in the Metamorph, in which I am, of course, mentor this man who rules a volcanic planet, who has great magical powers, and my daughter can change into all kinds of animals, etc. A bit Prospero again. With Charles Crichton, who directed all those Alec Guinness films. He directed me. And then I did, still staying in the series, I died in that, of course, and then re-immersed, came out as Dr. Roland in Ultima Thule, The Frozen Planet. And then I leave the frozen planet, I seduce all the crew of Alpha, leave the planet, and the inhabitants say, "You mustn't leave, Dr. Roland, you mustn't leave." And I leave and age 4,500 years, which was a great shock to Barbara Bain, who I was kissing at the time, as I kissed her, and aged this terrible skeleton in her arms. So it was that. And then all the scientists got together. All your Pillinger types got together, and we made Into Infinity, The Day After Tomorrow. in which we went from here to the moon for the first, travelling at the speed of light in the Altares, which is a lovely name for a spaceship, Altares. That's my favourite, and I think down there's Anastasia is another lovely name for a spaceship. Anastasia or Anastasia, whatever you call it. But it was wonderful kind of being in that, and of course we went at the speed of light, etc. And then had our last conversations with people on Earth. Hello there. Well, I'm now 40 years older. We're leaving this message to you. And then gradually, of course, after you've traveled another 2 hours, everybody on Earth that you've known is dead as you go out into space. And we go through a black hole and the effects of a black hole. So it was always, all that was madly, marvellously exciting. So to do that, so I did that. King Yrcanus in Doctor Who. Blake Seven, yes, really totally insane, wasn't I? I bought it there. It is interesting. I love exploration. I believe that adventure is the key to the new millennium, and principally space, of course. I love people like Bonington and people like that. I remember Bonington had been trying to, Christian Bonington, who, those of you who don't know, is one of the great mountaineers of all time, a great Everest thing, one of the our greatest ambassador in the Himalayas. And he'd come back from having tried to climb Menlungsi. And he had flu. And he stayed with me and with other mountaineers. And he said, I don't want to see another mountain as long as I live. It's been bloody hell trying to get up Menlungsi. We've suffered here, we've had frostbite, never had frostbite before. The bloody mountains are shit. This is Bonington, the great ambassador, made Sir by the Queen, of course. And I thought I'm going to seduce him. I like seducing people. So I was talking to different people. We had David Brashears, the American climber, this, that, and the other, chatting away. And I said, well, it's very interesting, isn't it? The other day I said, Mariner 9. This space vehicle went round Mars. And of course, it had a dust storm, I said, and the dust storm started to clear. And how dull Mars looked. And then I said, Mariner started to go around the other side. And 4 great tits came through the atmosphere. Pan, Aquarius, Olympus Mons, the size of Spain. And 3, 4, 5 times higher than Mount Everest. And Bonington said, what's the atmosphere like on Mars? I said, you lying bastard. You want to give up mountaineering and you already are working how you can climb Olympus Mons on Mars. So the grip of going to Mars was even with Bonington. Let me think. Stay on the subject, stay on the subject. Bum, ba, bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, ba, bum. I don't ever consult things like this. Ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. Da, 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 ba, bum. It is interesting that to show you how desperate I was to get into space, Pillinger in 2003, of course, had the Mars Express and Beetle 2, which I destroy people who criticize him. I destroy them in all kinds of ways. The spectrometer, now they can find tuberculosis because of him, all the different things. One of our great, you never fail in life. You never are failing in life as long as you have a go. I mean, I am sick also of this bloody age thing. You know, that 40 is middle age and all that crap. I think middle age between 55 and 65, but it's not how old you are, it's how you are old. And I mean, also, there is no one like you. Nature doesn't cheat. We've all got something that no one else has, and you've got to bring it out. There are Everests everywhere, in space and everywhere. But adventure is the key. You've got to follow your dreams and don't let the bastards grind you down. I've jumped ahead again. Here we go. So, I of course am narrating all the narrations with reaction engines in Abingdon, and I'm working with them to see all these young scientists. So one started to kind of, in my life, break through into this wonderful world of space and space exploration. As I said, I believe, we are the children of stardust. We don't just belong here. I've talked about Titan and all the other moons. I met Joe Pasquale the other day doing an advert with him. He's doing a university grant at the moment with the Open University. Joe Pasquale. I'm learning a lot, I've got my latest book on Gaia. Here's the book on Gaia. Thanks, Joe. Thanks. Because I'm the voice, I'm the shadow. Hello, underdog. And he is Joe Pasquale. And he has passed his first bit, his mathematics, and this, that, and the other. And of course I share with him, we talk about Gaia, that the Earth, the female, Everest is female. Everest is Sagarmatha, Chomolungma, it's a woman. There's nothing masculine about Everest. It is, when you get up there, you feel it. That's what seduces. The clarion call, the siren call of Everest. And the Gaia principle, that the Earth is alive, that it is a mother. So why do we have a sun? Why do we have what seem to be planets that don't organically have life? It's for Mercury and Mars and Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and Charon, and the others beyond. Why? It's as if they need to be activated. And the Gaia principle of the Earth being alive, that she can somehow fertilize and give them life. We've seen on Titan. So that we can have biospheres. On the Moon, new forms of Olympics. New forms, beautiful forms. New forms of painting. So you can jump 25 feet on the Moon. And to Mars. I mean, Mars has that valley for 3,500 miles. 3,500 miles, my old son. There it is. 4 miles wide, 10 miles wide. And 600 miles deep. It makes the Grand Canyon look like Mickey Mouse. It's astonishing. And then the giants that are there, these great mountains. But I feel very much that we need to go out there and we need to take our Lepidoptera and all kinds of things. But there is so much life here that, of course, is at the moment under attack. We're imploding. I mean, I'm not a prophet of doom, but wildlife is losing. When you see what's happening in China, when you see what's happening with tigers, and you see what's happening, I go around the world and see it. And then we can go out there and breed. And we can take our Lepidoptera out there. And there are ways of doing it and making it beautiful. And our birds, etc. Not just meant for the Earth. We mustn't be earth-bound. As I said, new forms of Olympics, new forms of art. Skateboard, the rings of Saturn. All that is what filled my mind as a child. It's wonderful working with them at Skylon. Sometimes I press the button, for one of the tests. And it goes, and then you press again, and that happens. All mountaineers, all kind of explorers everywhere, all explorers, their favourite film is The Right Stuff. Not the comedy series. The Right Stuff, the Mercury programme. And they all adore that. With Gordo Cooper always bragging amongst all the astronauts, bragging that I'm the best. He says to his wife, I'm the best astronaut. I'm the best. Yeah, you're looking at him and his wife, shall I stick with you, Christ? Because I'm the best. And they all love that. And of course, Glenn and all of them, they all take part in the program. And they all do this. Glenn goes around the Earth 3 times, etc. And so forth. And he never is used. And they leave Jaeger behind in the Nevada desert, the great ace. because he's not a university educated man, they leave him there and he goes on testing all the great jets and breaking all the speed limit. Of course, he's flying them. He's not in a capsule that's just been sent up there. He's in control. But Gordo Cooper, right at the end, the American president, and this is what all kind of astronomers and scientists and climbers and expedition members, that moment when the American president says he has a great big occasion, a great big banquet, and he says, I give you the astronauts, and they come forward, and so forth. And there's John Glenn and somebody else and somebody else. And Gordo Cooper is talking to his friend who's not been up in space yet. Has anyone's not been up? And they said, well, you've not been up yet, have you? Says, yeah, the astronauts, Glenn. Well, they're saving the best till last, you know, and all that chat goes on. Oh, Christ, the press are coming. And the press come forward, and they confront Gordo Cooper, which happened, of course, word by word. Hello, there's Gordo Cooper. Hey, Gordo, you've not been up yet. You're the only one. You're never going to go up by. And he then said, well, they're saving the best till last and all that. And his wife's looking at him, having heard this for a long time. And they said, look, we want to ask you, Gordo, who is the best astronaut? Who is the best? And you can see he's going to say, well, you know, you're looking at him. Well, I'll tell you. There's a man in a tin shed, and he gets into these planes and he keeps pulling back the envelope and doing the same thing, growing and growing. What? Oh, he said, they wouldn't listen to him. And so he said, well, who is the best pilot? You're looking at him. And the next shot is Jaeger, as he says it. These silver boots, vroom, vroom, and silver outfit in the Nevada desert. It's Jaeger. And he says to one of his men, I see a plane out there. It's got my name on it. He said, now you're talking. And there's this new one. It's hardly got any wings. This great big, you know, F-18. Just got no bloody wings. And and he starts to get inside it. And you keep cutting back to the astronauts with the American president. They're watching Claire de Lune, reminding them of possibly going to the moon. And then you see Jaeger coming out and say, who the hell's that? What the hell's he flying? Oh, it's Jaeger. We better not stop him. But in actual fact, he's got no permission. And Jaeger gets in this plane and he goes up, up, up to that wonderful da-dum, bum, 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 ba-da-bum, bum, 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 ba-da-bum, bum, dum, dum, da-da-dum, dum, vroom, 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 and he wants to break the world height record of the Russians, which was 114,000 feet. Of course, as you know, a jet plane needs oxygen. So it's going to collapse when it gets to a certain height. It can't feed. Can't feed. I know about this. I'll tell you why. I say when up, 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 and he gets it to a certain height, you keep cutting back to the astronauts, vroom, whom, and he goes up, and he gets it, and he breaks through the atmosphere, and it's black. Oh, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby. And there the stars. You can see the stars. It's in space, begin to crumble and break the F-18. So, come on, baby, just one more, just no, another 20 feet, yeah. And he breaks the world record. And then it starts to crumble and crumble and crumble and come down. And his skin on his stomach went over his knees, almost down by his ankles. And he goes down and down and down. And he can't control it, it's going to crash. He's going down at great speed. And he manages to eject himself. He's slightly in flames, but and you see him struggling through the clouds. And then you cut to an ambulance, and you see his best friend with this doctor. And they're driving the ambulance, and the plane has blown up. And that is the most magnificent sight you've ever seen. It makes us all climb, makes us want to do all kinds of things. And through this dust and shit and smoke steps this man holding his parachute, and there's blood down here, and he's got a black eye, and he's walking, vroom, 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 vroom. And the man says, is that a man? And the man with him says, "You bet your goddamn life that's a man." And that's what the fuck we all want to do. There he was, striding through the mist, this extraordinary creature. And of course, the last shot is Gordo Cooper going into space on the Saturn rocket, the first Saturn rocket, and that's the end of the Mercury program. But it's all there, it's their favorite film. And so inspired me. And so I kept knocking on doors. When I gave my lecture at the Royal Geographical Society, and then they brought me back again, I suddenly found a whole host of doctors. Montgomery's not here now. Montgomery and Fong and all the space doctors were there, you know. And Golombek from NASA, you know, they were all there. And I said, I want to make a film. I want to make a film where we go to, I want to point the finger to Mars. See, when Colin went in 2003 with his Express, his Mars Express, and he set off, I was in South America, and I just climbed Cotopaxi, and I approached Chimborazo. Well, as you know, if you know, well, Everest is 29,035 feet high, and Chimborazo is 21,000 feet high, and it is in Ecuador. And of course, there's the Earth, and Everest is there on that incline. So it's not the furthest point away from the Earth. The furthest point is on the bulge, the equatorial bulge, and it's Chimborazo. And as Colin was going up with the Express, I was on Chimborazo, and I reached out, and I was close to Mars, the closest you could be on planet Earth. I was at the top of Chimborazo and being filmed. I'm there, this is the closest I can be since a child. Holding the dream since I was 7. You got to hold on to dreams, don't let people put you off. And I was close to Mars. And I have this affinity when I meet Colin. There's extraordinary, strange affinity that he has. And I then came back and said, we've got to, you know, we've got to make a film about going to Mars. We've got to make a film, I want the best mountaineers in it. I want the best microbiologists in it. I want the best, you know, geologists in it, and this, that, and the other, and all that. And the best suits, and we'll use the Brin and everybody. And we go to Mars, and we climb Olympus Mons, the highest mountain on Mars. And we had some of the great climbers. We had Catherine Destoville. Catherine, beautiful Catherine, who is the greatest rock climber in the world, climbs without ropes. You've seen her climb? I've always enjoyed climbing, 4-mile drop. Oh, yes, I mean, oh, goodness me. And she said, Christ, Catherine. She was in it and all that. And we had a man in it to make, he designs all the suits for Mars and the moon and everything. And this man, he also designed the suit for the Predator in Arnold Schwarzenegger's film, The Predator. And the 7'2" man was called Peter Hall, is inside it. He's inside it, 7'2", and he designed that suit. And so he made a suit for me. And I think it cost about $3.5 million. He made the Martian prototype. He makes all the Martian prototype suits. And there I was, on Devon Island. And then in South America, on Reunion Island, with some of the world's greatest mountaineers and great scientists wearing this. I met Golombek. It's extraordinary. You go to Jodrell Bank, where I said, let's film Jodrell Bank. You go to Jodrell Bank, and the guy in charge of Jodrell Bank comes out, and he goes, hello, Brian. See, press that. Can you hear that? Ooh, oh, oh. It's a red light. It's a red light on Jupiter. Can you hear it? Can you hear the red light? And he's pressing things. Come on, let's get on the satellite dish. Vroom, 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 vroom. Let me put some lovely orange lights on it. There we are, Brian. So we'll spend a day, 2 days with him, this man in charge of Jodrell Bank. He is a child. He's a child. He will never grow up. He's much, much older than that. Wonderful. And then I met Golombek, the head of NASA. I mean, you can't imitate Golombek. You wouldn't, I mean, hello, very good, Brian. No, we want to go to Mars. We're going to go to Mars. He's like that all the time. This is the brain. This is the brain of NASA. Hello, very good. And the brain, as I say, it's like this, the brain. And like that's the brain. God, and so forth. But you can't believe this guy who's in charge of NASA, that he has that personality. And I find all these geniuses and all these great rocket people and so forth have this incredible love of life and so forth. And so I got together with them, with some of the best astronauts, some of the best doctors. We went to Reunion Island, and we thought we'd film there and make the great shield volcano there, Olympus Mons. We had special effects. This was to point the way to go to Mars. What the hell have we been up to? What the hell? We are surrounded by people with lack of imagination, no drive, no energy. This is our birthright. Since I was 7, I meet them, as I've told you, at Leicester, 7 and 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds, kids in hundreds and thousands. And they all don't understand why we're not on Mars, why we're not going out there. They do not understand it. They want to go. And so that's why I made this film. The Mountains of Mars. And to point the way, to go there. So we had all these suits. We worked with NASA. We worked with Golombek. I worked with Zubrin. We had all these suits on. We climbed up the volcano. They did special effects and so forth, going up there. And because I have this ability, when I meet top scientists, to say, why not? I'm sick of it. I'm 76. I'm sick of it. I'm waiting. What the hell? What's all this? Well, because since that's very, you see, because we're going to get this and gamma rays and this and cure it. Find a way. Find a way. Find a way to travel at that speed. Find a way. Make a better rocket ship. Make it better. Yes, Brian, you're not performing properly. Right, Brian. Right, you can do more. Don't sit in your arse so much. So that's what I said, well, I'm NASA. I'm with them like that. And the Russians. The Russians piss themselves when I'm in Moscow with them. What the hell are you doing? You know. As I walk around, chase them around Soyuz and grab their asses in Baikonur. And so I said, come on, get on with it. And so we were out there. We had Golombek with us. We had Catherine Destivelle. We eventually arrived in Moscow to be trained for outer space. And I have spent 3 years training. And Catherine Destivelle was with me. And we went on the centrifuge, you know. We went to all kinds of machines, new machines, all kinds of different machines. One machine that goes very slowly, a rotating machine, is very slow. And Catherine is the world's greatest climber. She's the fittest. She sat on it. I am off. They put tripods on her and covered her eyes. And after 30 seconds, I discovered a Russian had done 1.5 minutes on it. Nobody else had. So it's nothing, just a bloody chair. So there I was in Moscow. Putin came to watch, and they put me on the chair. They put the pods on me, and the wires, and the wires here. I closed my eyes, and I thought my legs came off. I experienced my legs coming off and blowing up. I felt my arms coming off. I felt myself go upside down. I felt all my brain exploding. And no, I said, sorry about this, fuck it. You become very animalistic. I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hold on. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Oh, God. And my brain's exploding and this, that, and the other. It's going up a side and down. And I come out of it. Oh, the bastards are not going to break me down. The Russian bastards. And I vomited in the sink and vomit. Catherine's on the floor going, oh Christ, what are we doing? She's on the floor, the great Catherine d'Estavel, and I vomited in there. Then went to other machines, as I said, the centrifuge and so forth, which I found quite easy compared to that. I've now learned that they never use that machine that I've just described. The one that had that effect on us. It's not necessary. Space is easier than that. It's not as hard as that. Of course, I mean, basically, the Soyuz goes to between 7.5 and 10 Gs. But I went to 12.5 Gs on one machine. They wanted to fail me. Not likely. And of course, when I was there, people said, what a bloody liar you are. I went, oh God, what's the machine? What's the station? What did the Russians put in space? What? The Mir. So I went on the Mir, and I filmed on it. And I said, oh, I was on the Mir. They said, oh, you bloody liar. The Mir was disintegrated in space. I said, well, no, I've had coffee in there, dressed up completely with all the Russians. You're a bloody liar. Of course, they made 2. They've got one in Moscow. They never put it up there, so I just go and say, I love confounding them, and so forth. And Putin's very sweet, very tough, very strong. Are you Russian? And so it was amazing doing this training with the astronauts, meeting all the best Russian astronauts and their top professors, and so forth. And so I've done basically between 3 and 6 months training. And I am now a fully trained cosmonaut, and I'm 76, and I'm going to the International Space Station in 16 months' time. So, my desire to go into space. Of course, I never mentioned, of course, I had a great advantage. Why did I have a great advantage, eh? Squadron 40 dive, does that make any sense? Squadron 40 dive. Oh well, who wants to live forever? Flash, you're right. I was cast in Flash Gordon as Voltan the Flying Hawkman. Oh. And so whenever I go to space, when I go to seminars and I meet all the astronauts and I meet Zubrin or in the Arctic, and all the Americans and Russians and so forth, they all say, please Brian, say it, Gordon's alive! And they all cheered. They cheer and cheer and cheer. Even Putin asked me to. And the Queen, the Queen said, you know, Mr. Blessed, we watched Buckingham Palace last Christmas. We watched Flash Gordon all the time. You know, by the way, I'll hold on to Flash Gordon with the Queen. She said, you know, the other day, Mr. Blessed, I saw, because I was always her favourite when I was in Z-Cars many years ago, when I was Fancy Smith. We'd love you as Fancy Smith, you butch bastard. 2,500 letters a day. And we'd loved you as Fancy Smith. And she was saying, because I loved you in Flash Gordon and so forth, but I watched you in Have I Got News for You? When you told the story of climbing up Everest, you know, at 26,000 feet, and that story about the toilet. We worked out you said F-U-C-K about 30 times. And I said, well, I was conveying exactly what the language is like on Mount Everest, the reality. And it is so terrifying at certain moments. You know, and so forth. No. She said, it's an old Anglo-Saxon word, it means spreading of seed. But, you know, I watch it all the time, you see, I watch it all the time. See, but I've never heard F-U-C-K said so many times. That's really wonderful. It's my favourite programme, the one that you made, you know, in which I describe Everest and the whole thing. Anyway, I forgot, what was I talking about before? So, what was I talking about before the Queen? What? Yes. The what? Yes, I'm going into yes, Flash Gordon, and so because she said, you know, we watch it. Flash Gordon's our favourite film. We watch it all the time. And would you mind saying Gordon's alive? So I said, Gordon's alive! She said, thank you so much. So she watches Flash Gordon all the time. She's my kind of biggest fan all the time. So I'm working with Charles and all of them, and Camilla and everybody, who I'm outrageous with. Camilla, I'm always sexually saying terrible sexual things. Don't stop it. And so forth. When I first went to Everest, and it was wonderful to be 29 and to be the oldest man to get to the summit without oxygen in 1990, and we made the film Galahad of Everest. When I addressed the Royal Geographical Society, the Queen and Princess Anne, I mean, they were all there, you know, and of course, you do have to use this terrible language, because that's what occurs. You know, they lie about Mount Everest. They never tell the truth. We got on very well. No, you didn't. I was always stopping you fighting. The mountain tears them apart, and so forth. But to be by the summit at night and have the Milky Way sitting in folds on your head in blue and green, is it not dangerous going to Mount Everest? I think the greatest danger in life is not taking the adventure. You've got to go for it. We've all got something that nobody else has got. We've all got something. Nature doesn't cheat. And you've got to bring it out. And with Everest, they said it was impossible. Impossible. When I first went there at 57 and made Galahad of Everest for the BBC. You know, me following in Maori, dressed like this. And the weather was fantastic. And I was dressed like this as Maori was, with big scarves. And the weather was marvellous. And I went to just exactly where he disappeared. That marvellous man, George Lee Mallory, because it is there. That great man. So I've always followed great explorers and Edmund Hillary and people like that. And I just feel that we're somehow, I mean, thinking of Flash Gordon, I saw Flash Gordon when I was a child, with Buster Crabbe, as I mentioned. But I never dreamt I'd actually play Vultan in a film. And then I saw the comic strip, and of course Vultan looks like me. And I met Laurentis, and they cast me as Vultan, which is wonderful, wonderful cast, you know. And I remember Ming the Merciless saying to me, Max von Sydow, the great Swedish actor, Brian, he said, I don't know how to play Ming. He was about to make his first entrance as Ming the Merciless, which is a wonderful Ming the Merciless. Max von Sydow is an extraordinary Swedish actor. And I said, Max, what do I do, Brian? I said, I saw you in a film, Use Your Fingers. I said, Ming the Merciless is erotic. He feels people up. He's full of sex, and he's a magician. He's terrifying. So it's his fingers. I saw you, I said, in the Quiller Memorandum, torturing George Segal. Hello, how are you, Mr. And you kept cracking your fingers. And so, you know, he then played Ming the Merciless. He said, right, use your fingers. So when you see Flash Gordon, you notice, he uses his fingers all the time. Thank you, Brian, it frees him up all the time. So, it's amazing what can free you up. By the way, if you give a lecture, I'm not here because I'm speaking to the converted, but if you give a lecture, make sure the lighting's all right, because if you're blinded by light, you can't remember your mother. If you have a lot of light on you, you can't remember your father. You can't remember who the bloody hell you are. So make sure that, and clear your throat, and always make sure your throat is clear, and always have your mouth slightly open. In acting or speaking, look at that. How are you? I'm all right today. But yeah, I was going to say, and you're organic. You're just slightly, your mouth just slightly open. The politicians haven't mastered it. I was. Don't, Mr. Cameron, don't, Mr. Belaban, shut your mouth. You can breathe there. It makes him organic. It gives him great power if they just keep their mouth slightly open. Anyway, what was I saying? So anyway, Flash Gordon. It was wonderful being, you know, I've been in all these wonderful, it somehow made me happy to be in science fiction because it's so like science fact. And Flash Gordon has a strange atmosphere, what with Buster Crabbe and people like that. He wanted to be in our Flash Gordon. He was 85. He looked wonderful, wonderful and muscular. And I tried to get him in that scene, you know, where Flash goes to the aeroplane at the beginning to get in an aeroplane. There's a mechanic in the background. Do you know who that is? Robbie Coltrane. Look at it when you see it. And I said, can't you get Buster Crabbe just to take him to the plane? Because he wanted to be in it so much, and De Laurentiis wanted to break with the past completely. But there's a marvellous scene where I attack rocket ship Ajax, which all in Moscow, all the astronauts, cosmonauts, and in NASA and everywhere, it's their favourite scene when I fly with my Hawkman. The 2,500 of us took ages to get the wings ready to fly down onto rocket ship Ajax to attack the aliens. And I come down, follow me, Flash! And I've got this kind of wooden weapon, you know, and cardboard, most of it, is my ray gun. And I come flying down, follow me, Flash! Oh, well, who wants to live forever? And I dive down. So, and I came down, and as I landed with all the monsters around me, right on rocket ship Ajax, I went, they said, cut, cut, cut. Brian, we put in the special effects. I have never felt such a tit in all my life. Because it's very hard because they can't hold up. You can't, you? Follow me, Flash, you can't. You've got to. I mean, Flash Gordon had a little pistol. He'd always take it out and go, badang, badang, badang. Oh, shit. Because he always made that little noise. But when I landed on top of rocket ship Ajax, it was quite wonderful. And a marvellous, exciting film to do, to kind of realise your dreams since being a child. It was wonderful to do, the whole thing, and to be part of it. And therefore, when I did make this film, filming with NASA, this Martian film, filming with NASA, and filming with all the astronauts, and filming with all the cosmonauts in Russia, and being in Baikonur, was absolutely astonishing to meet them, and to meet Buzz Aldrin and people like that who was alongside. As I said, Buzz Aldrin said, you know, because it is what is, I fight people who are anti-space, who are anti-exploration, or anti-adventure. And Buzz Aldrin says, God damn, every time. He said, I fucking meet different people. They say, I never landed on the moon. I never walked on the moon. All this crap, you know, about, you know, that they never landed on the moon. Rubbish. You know, all these theories. And they're all over the place. People love to have false kind of knowledge, don't they? Well, I think. And I would say, well, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Because if you go to Australia, you'll be bloody pistol whipped. Because they use the dish, and they help NASA to bring those signals back from the moon, and the film back from the moon. I said, it didn't come from Bognor Regis, it came from the bloody moon. Anyway, Buzz Aldrin said to me, the last time I saw him, the next bastard that says I didn't land on the moon and walk on the moon, I'll chin the bastard. And of course, if you look at internet, there's a guy who does that. So, you're a fraud, you're a liar. You never went to the moon. Wham! Buzz Aldrin gives him a great... So it is Messner climbed Everest for the first time without oxygen, the great Reinhold Messner. I must tell you that when I made Galahad of Everest, which won all these awards when I went up Everest in the 20s clothes, the BBC said, we've filmed Bonington, we've filmed the Chinese, we've filmed the Russians, we've filmed the Queen, we've filmed everybody, Hillary and everybody. You know, but we haven't got Reinhold Messner. And I am known to be fearless. Death, bollocks. Life is the last word. You know? You've been alive, what, for 23 years, 24 years? So you've been alive for a very young time, haven't you? When were you dead? You've never been dead. You've only known life. We've always been alive. Kind of life is the last word. What was I saying? I've jumped ahead, and I'm coming near to the end. What was I saying? I was talking about what?
Mesmer.
Mesmer. Thank you. And they said, so for the first time in my life, I said, I don't want to meet Mesmer. Not Mesmer. You see, all mountaineers, like all opera stars, when I did Pavarotti many years ago on Stars in Their Eyes, all opera stars say, I mean, Placido Domingo, when I was in the musical Cats, he said, well, we all bow to Pavarotti. But Placido, you've got the most wonderful voice. I am too fruity. My voice is too fruity. I cannot project as well as Luciano Pavarotti. I cannot. I go in a barn, I try, but I cannot reach the way he does. And all of them, Carreras, none of them, we are all fruity. We are all have a cloud in our voice. But Luciano's voice is purity. It is perfection. It is so forth. You know. So I'll come back to Pavarotti in a second. But Mesmer has that effect. He's the first man to climb all 14,008-meter climbs. I hate meters. Climbs over 26,000 feet. They were climbed by Mesmer. And he climbed the Eiger North Wall in 3/4 of an hour. Takes 5-7 days. He did 3/4 of an hour. He's a kind of god. All mountaineers, you know, he did the Scots expedition. He ran in 2 weeks to the South Pole and ran back again in 2.5 weeks. It's a bloody holiday. And I said, I don't want to meet Mesmer. I'm a greenhorn compare. I don't want to. Brian, we've got everything on film. It'll make us feel what Mallory was like if we meet Mesmer. He lived in a castle. I said, oh, right. They approached him. He said, an actor. I don't want to meet an actor. So anyway, the time came. It's just the start of 10, 9, 8. That's what that is. It's the rocket's going to set off. You're all in a rocket. So anyway, he said, I will see him for 1 minute. I'll see Blessed for 1 minute. We got to his car. He lives in a castle in the Tyrol. And there was this castle. And I just hid away. Oh, your camera. I just hid away and hid behind. But me, Brian Blessed, was scared of nothing. And thank God he wasn't there. The BBC are all over his gardens. And then a car came up. And out of this car stepped. You see, you talk about heroes. You talk about Flash Gordon. Or you talk about Armstrong and people like this. And out of this car stepped Achilles. Ringlets. We put drums on it. Vum, vum. Vum, vum. And it was Mesmer, vum vum. And I said, Rhino's here! And he turned around. He looked at me and he came across and he took me by the shoulders and he looked me in the eye and he said, you can stay all day, you're as fucking mad as I am. And that was Mesmer. Of course, later on I took the ultimate challenge, didn't I? That's why I find space so thrilling and the whole thing. But I'm thinking about the moon and Mars. I'm part of the Martian program as well. But to complete my training in the Hydra and the centrifuge and all these different things. And I said to my wife, I'm going up to 95,000 feet in a MiG-29 in a few days' time. My wife said, I just stamped my foot at that. Christ, you go to Everest, Christ, you've been to Aconcagua, and you've been to Mongolia, and this, that, and the other. Now, you're going to go in a fucking MiG-29 with some fucking admiral going straight up to 95,000 feet. It will kill you. This time, this will kill you. And I said, all right. I forbid it. Right. You wouldn't have a chance. I said, I did it 2 days ago. You bastard, you. So, when I came down, of course, the pilot, you know, inside his goggles, he was just sick. He was sick all over his face. How the bloody hell did he get us down? I was a bit woozy, but he got us down. I said before I got in, I want to say to you here, now, Brian, that if when we are in the MiG-29, I'll go to 80, 85,000, maybe if you're good, 95,000 feet, we'll start going like this, at this height. You know, then as we come down, if the plane starts to break up, then I will press a button. Don't open your chute yet. And it will all go back to the cockpit. Then as I get it to 40,000 feet, then we can just maneuver with our connections onto the wing, and then we jump from there. And don't open your parachute for 20 seconds. I'm told this before I got in the plane, which is very reassuring. It might break up. Of course, you know the MiG has rivets this big on it. I mean, our Starfighter can, if it lands on this, can blow up. It's so sensitive, that's the trouble. But we still make the best planes. We still have the best scientists. By the way, when I did do Pavarotti, I said yes to doing Pavarotti. Oh, Christ, because I got £300,000 for children in need and so forth. And when I came on, the makeup, my hair, my beard, people just stood up and cheered, because he looks like Pavarotti. Christ. And then the cheering stopped, and I thought, well, he looks like it. They'll never sound. And the shock in their faces, you know, I'd need a piano, I can't. The shock in their faces. Sole, chi è bello in me, o solo mio, sta fronte a te, o sole mio, sta fronte a te. But I've got the wrong. Anyway, that's enough, isn't it? I've got the wrong thing. But the shock in their faces. I go, turn on to the, and of course I won. Of course I bloody won. And Pavarotti was there watching. Good. Sweet. Yes, in my age. He taught me. Yes. I said, it's amazing, Pavarotti. I said, Maestro, because he trained me for the whole 3 weeks. Maestro, I said, you know, my Italian's terrible, but would you mind me saying your Italian is worse? He said, yes. He said it's true. I don't sing consonants. I only sing vowels. You see, in England and the Germans, they sing consonants. It closes the throat. Don't sing consonants. So I just sing rubbish. So when you you only want to hear the sound. But I only sing vowels. So when you listen to him, you can hear he sings vowels. Not T's and all that. No, just vowels. He just sings vowels, so he keeps his throat open. But anyway, look, I've been talking forever. I didn't know what I'd say to you, because I get it from you. It's a great privilege to be here, because you have got, Brahma, you have got a stunning reputation. You know, right, the Royal Geographical Society. I go to the House of Commons now. Alan Duncan is a great favourite of space, etc. I meet lots of the young scientists. I go to Sellafield and meet all the young scientists. We have over 200 tons of enriched uranium in this country for space, for atomic rockets. You see, in the 50s we had, as you know this, a blue night, a blue streak, black night, and black night, blue streak, and what was the other one? What? Black Arrow. There you see. You see. And we had that, and we had the Woomera rocket range. We were in advance of Wernher von Braun. We were about to go into space, and I'm not knocking any political party beyond that. I'm too long in the bloody tooth for that. But Lord Massey cancelled the space program. It wasn't expensive. And they cancelled it. Christ. I mean, Pillinger said to me, Brian, we would have been on Mars. Britain would have been on Mars, and not expensive. It wasn't expensive. We're now finding that space is not expensive. They're finding ways. There are 700 space agencies in the world at the moment. I luckily was the master of ceremonies for the Hong Kong handover in 1997, because I'd gone to Everest, the northern side. The Chinese, like me, we like man with voice. We want him, the man with the beard and the voice. And so I was the master of ceremonies for the Hong Kong handover. I mean, I never forget him saying to me, the Prime, where is the car? Please tell people of Britain, now that it is now becoming part of China, Brian, please tell them I am bringing 10,000 troops in. But yes, there are 10,000 British troops. I need 5,000 troops to keep the opium out, and 5,000 troops to keep my people out, because if they all come in from China into Hong Kong, there'll be millions and billions of people, and you have no idea what millions and billions of people are like. They'll all be trampled and crushed and so forth. By the way, who was it? Robin Cook. Robin Cook, the new foreign minister, criticizing us, he does not frighten us very much. You can tell Mr. Cook we are not very frightened at his threats. You know, Robin Cook at the time was in the aeroplane demanding his bloody money and expenses and everything. Where's my money? Where's my expenses? You know, so, you know. I just passed it and I said, oh, the Chinese president, he says, you know, you don't make him scared. So he didn't like that at all, you know. But anyway, but there are 700 agencies in the world. And I'm pleased to say now, because of Abingdon, because of Skylon, and because of scientists around Sellafield, we have lots. I have met. You see, we built, Christ, we built radar over a weekend. When Hitler was going to threaten us, and this, that, and the other, and Churchill said, make something where we can see what the hell they're doing, and use this film of it. And all these boffins there, and they make a little thing, and goes, and then a few hours later, chum boom, chum boom, chum boom, and then boom, 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 and they're all watching. And they made over a weekend radar. Now, you see, look. We're a mixture. You remind me of Kakianis, the Greek director. I thought I was being haunted by doing Trojan Women again with Michael Kakianis. And so we have brilliant scientists. And of course, we are, you know, we're made up of, from John O'Groat to Land's End, we're Romans, we're Anglo-Saxons, you know, we're all that lot. You know, William the Conqueror, Normans, everything else. I'm Norman extract, that's why I'm so bloody insane. I'm a Norman, and when they trace me. And so we have all these mixed bloods and great mixture that we've got in Britain at the moment. I think Britain's never been stronger because of all the different religions you know, that we're together. I think it's exciting. I mean, I often drop into a mosque, and I'll go in and see the Hindus, and etc., and the Baha'is and people like that, and I'm deeply interested. The Dalai Lama is my age. When I was a coal miner's son, he was a god king. And when I put in the Everest film, it's in the Everest film, because he blessed the 1924 expedition, his predecessor. The present Dalai Lama is the 14th. And of course, that was the 13th Dalai Lama in 1924. Out of interest, space is mysterious and wonderful. And I'm coming to the end now, and belief in life. I was a guest in Galahad of Everest of the Dalai Lama in Darul Salma for a whole week. We got on marvelously. When you meet the Dalai Lama, you become honest. You know, we can lie in silence. And I met him, and I found I was almost rude to him all the time. And I met him when he wanted to film. Is it time yet? No, out! Be patient, Your Holiness. I mean, you're the Dalai Lama. Have you not learned patience? Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Out! So that's the way I treated him and sit down. And I said to him, what do you do for sex? You've not heard this in the Planetary Society before, have you? No. I said, you know, I've always been a randy bugger. I said, I'm still sexy at 76. I don't need the bloody blue pill. And I said, Your Holiness, you've got most beautiful skin. All your life, you've never had sex. The translator, he doesn't need a translator. He's just there for security. Was almost fainting. No one asks His Holiness questions like this. But what have you done for sex? You've got wonderful skin. You've not had any sex all your life. And please, please, it's okay. No, you're quite right. No one asks me this, Brian. He said, I do sometimes think of a beautiful woman that I knew, and then I do my mantras louder and take a cold shower. And do his mantras louder and take a cold shower. And we just got on marvellously about the whole thing. And I watched him kind of do miracles and this, that, and the other. So it's wonderful kind of meeting him. Oh, by the way, so I said to him, right, because my favourite expedition is 1924. And we all hear about Mallory, who said because it is there was so handsome and gorgeous. But the leader of the expedition was General Bruce, who was his size. General Bruce, and very powerful General Bruce, very physically powerful. Well known for Kundum, his great feats of strength. And I said, because I never talked about a reincarnation. He never wants to hear, only wants to hear about love. But it was my job to con him. When you meet him, it was my job to constantly con him. I boxed him because he liked Joe Louis, the world heavyweight boxing champion from the past. He had his boxing gloves, so I boxed him. Keep your hand up, Holiness, and so forth. And so I said, General Bruce, he was very powerful in Mallory's expedition in 1924. Oh, yes, yes, yes. He was so powerful, we could put his head here and his legs here. And me and my other rishis, we couldn't bend his spine. I talked about General Bruce for half an hour. He told me all about him, running with him, wrestling with him. I said, right. You really are the 13th. You weren't born then. I'm talking about 1924, 22. You were born in 1936, like me. I had total confirmation of reincarnation. You are a naughty boy. I don't talk about reincarnation. While you're on the subject, he said, you lost your brother, younger than you. Yes, he was never well. He is, and he did that. He is in Nova Scotia, Halifax. He's there. He liked fishing, didn't he? He's now been born into a fishing family. He's 6 years of age. And I did the conclave playing the Pope in the film, and it was filmed near Nova Scotia. And I went into this street, went down the street, knocked on this door, and there was my brother at 6 years of age. The miracle of the Dalai Lama, an amazing man, and so forth. But how do I end it? I mean, it is an honor to be here. I think I've talked about these wonderful young scientists that we've got in Sellafield. We've got them now in Abingdon working on Skylon. And we've got a lot in Europe working on Mars Direct. And they're working with Zubrin, and they're working with Golombek and people like this, and Dr. Fong. And I'm part of the whole team. And I feel that we are going to go out there now. I think that we are making Zubrin, apparently, I talked to him very quietly, he says, they tell me he has created a spaceship that can travel half the speed of light. It's in a bubble. He won't talk about it much. Yeah. It's in a bubble, Brian. It's in a bubble. I can do half the speed at the moment. So that we're on the verge of all that kind of thing, which of course means you'll get to Mars in 2 minutes. So now we're on the verge of all that. Marvelous, exciting things. As I said, on the moon, new forms of Olympics, new forms of art. On Mars, new forms of art. That we are the children of stardust. That we need to go out there. That we belong out there. After all, every time we wake up, we're in a different part of the universe, aren't we? Every day we're in a different part of the universe with the speed that we're traveling at with the Milky Way. But there's so much now going on. And it's young people and the young in heart. And positive things are going on in the world. And I think that we're going to succeed. We're going to make it. I've met the Chinese. They adore Britain. They want 3/4 of China, wherever you go, they want Great Britain written on everything. So the Olympics and all that, they want Great Britain. They love us. They admire us immensely. And we have great influence. We're very, as I said, we're now progressing with our rocket programs, and in Europe as well. And next week I'm going to go and visit Desdemona. Desdemona? The biggest centrifuge in the world is in Holland. It's iridescent, beautiful. No human beings been on it. They're terrified it will kill them. But I'm going to be the first on it. Death, thou shalt die. No. But there we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor being here with such wonderful people. And people like yourselves. But we are in the minority to a great extent. I had yesterday one of the worst experiences meeting several thousand people who are very anti-space and all the usual things. We're going to get it right on the Earth. What are you talking about? What the hell are you talking about? Try to explain to them about this, that, and the other, you know, and so forth. Oh, adventure's not going to... Adventure is the key to the millennium. I said, you're an astronaut, so you've got no choice. You're traveling at 57,000 miles a second, so you've got no choice. You're an astronaut, mate, on rocket ship Earth. And try to explain, start to open them up a bit, and so forth. But there is a feeling that it's expensive, expensive, expensive. Science now, with all the different agencies, 700 agencies, space agencies, are finding ways of traveling in space that cost so little. So Britain has got tremendous ideas that cost very, very little, and so forth. And Putin's also very, very much for it. I wrestled him, he does judo. I did judo years ago. I let him win, you don't do that. And so forth. Anyway, look, ladies and gentlemen, I'll stop there. Ask some questions. I've gone on and on forever, haven't I? It's a pleasure. Pleasure. It's not quite what Pillinger or Hawking would do. And Pillinger's wonderful because he does go off his head at times. Wonderful.
Okay, questions, anyone? We've got the microphone here, so...
I'll just say Colin Pillinger wants a word with you afterwards. He's just rung me, so I'll come and see you.
Oh, he really has?
Yes, he has.
Yes, he got me a present. He's telling me he never gives me anything. He's a mean sod. No, it's a... I'm trying to ask because he's got Beagle 3, hasn't he? He's got it.
Are you going up before or after Sarah Brightman?
I'm going after. I mean, Sarah, I know Sarah Brightman very well. Because Sarah, Sarah Brightman, we were in Cats together. In the original Cats, that was Deuteronomy, old Deuteronomy. And I remember a lovely moment in the start of the second half. There was an interval, just to lay, I'm not going to go on and on, about Sarah Brightman. I'll never forget, I was in the middle of the stage, Trevor Nunn, with this amazing, the first year's cast was Elaine Page, Paul Nicholas, Wayne Sleep, the whole of the Covent Garden dancers and opera singers, and I was the only actor as old Deuteronomy. And of course, at the end of the first half, they all leave the stage. And she sings a little bit of Memory, then she leaves because she's lonely. And I see her, but they leave because they're repulsed by her, and she leaves because she's lonely. So I used to be on the stage on my own, and Mrs. Thatcher and everybody, they'd all come on the stage and talk to me, hello, and talking to me and so forth. And so I'd get thousands of people on the stage. Now, I could never leave the stage as old Deuteronomy. But I remember the second half, I can't remotely sing it because I'd need the orchestra, but I suddenly sing a Buddhist bit. In the second half of Deuteronomy, suddenly sing, the moments of happiness. We had the experience, but miss the meaning. An approach to the meaning restores the experience in a different form. Beyond any meaning we can assign to... I go on. And when I finish, not forgetting something that is probably quite ineffable. And I heard this golden voice behind me. Moonlight, turn your face to the moonlight. In the rehearsal for the first, what the hell's got that voice, that golden voice? Sarah Brightman. And Sarah said to me, oh, Brian, she's very young and that. Oh, you know, I read in the newspapers that you want to go into space. Oh, no one will ever take me seriously. I'd have to save up and save up and save up and save up. But I want to go into space. And I believe passionately, this is when I talk to all the rocket scientists, and I talk to them in America and Russia, the butcher, come on, come on, come on. Because space is not difficult. Not anymore, not that machine that I was on. None of that, no, 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 it's much easier. So the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everybody can go into space. And my old guy who looks after all my bloody ducks, he said, I give my right arm, he said, to go to Mars. I really desperately want to go to Mars. And she just, I want to go into space. And now, I think she's done the centrifuge. That you don't do the slow thing now. That's taken away. When I'd finished that slow one, the slow rotating on the cerebellum, Dr. Fong, you get here sometimes, in Montgomery, said, Brian, you should never have done that. The Russians stopped doing it ages ago, and my kidneys and my liver was enlarged for 6 months. And I only was on it for 2 minutes. You don't do that now. But she, if she can pass, you don't need the mathematics, because she'll be an observer. And she's small. I mean, quite small. I mean, in my training in Russia, the astronauts, I nearly died of laughter. All the Russian cosmonauts nearly died of bloody laughter. Because most of them are rather like jockeys. So the things they're sitting, they're bloody jockeys. You get long, thin ones, and they were pushing me into machines, the gravitational machine. Jesus Christ, look at them pushing me. And so you go, oh, for fuck's sake, get him in. Oh, Jesus Christ. Because it's made for jockeys. It's made for bloody jockeys, all their things. So for me to go into space, they have to adjust certain things to put me into space, because I'm 17 stone. So they have to adjust it. But I said, but I'm out for everybody going there. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. We've got to get them all out there. You know, and NASA and all of them, and the Russians, you know, France, and they're all for it. They're all for that. But she has got to pass basic mathematics, and she has got to do an awful lot in the centrifuge, which is very big and powerful. It goes to 12 Gs in Russia. They'll take it to 8 or 9. The Soyuz goes to 12. It is so reliable. The Russians, compared to America, which I love the Americans, I love their scientists, I love what they do, I want them back in it. I love what the Americans have done, and don't hate any nation and so forth. But they spent more money in the last 20 years on buildings and offices. Whereas the Russians in Space City, you go there, and the bloody water is coming off the bloody pipes in some of the rooms, and the rust and shit everywhere, not in every... And you get 1 or 2 very good rooms, you know, but the room I was in, I mean, Christ, the bloody hell, the pipes, I'm taping up the bloody pipes. But they put their money into their rockets, and all that, and their machines. So the Soyuz, which always looks small, is gigantic. And... you know, the shuttle usually is like a Spitfire. I've been in Spitfires and Hurricanes, and they can go to 5 Gs. I mean, how they fought, the Germans, I do not know. Because they turn, oof, oof, oof. You know, the turning, and how do they fly and then fire at Germans? Well, I mean, I talked to lots of the pilots, and they said, well, Christ, it was hit or miss most of the time. You get them there, you know, and sometimes you shot your own people down because it was so quick. I mean, jarring you, particularly the Hurricane, would jar their bodies and so forth. But certainly the centrifuge is... so with Soyuz, as I said, the shuttle was basically 6 at the most, really, Gs. But the Soyuz is capable of 12. Of course, 13 Gs, as you know, and you're a bloody amoeba. But I have been... You know, you don't want to wake up the Quatermass experiment. But, but I've been to 12 Gs. But the Soyuz the other week, for the first time, malfunctioned. It got a bit of garbage from the space station stuck to it. And they had to make a very deep dive back to Russia. And they normally were 8, 9 Gs, so they went to 12. And that's the first time that's happened. So it's very a reliable, wonderful thing. Another question. Yes, my old son.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about Chuck Yeager going to the edge of space. I just wondered what your views were on the man who's been there most recently, Felix Baumgartner, and also, would you take such a jump yourself?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, immediately, yes. I mean, it's extraordinary because the actors are always concerned about me, because I'm 50% explorer, 50% actor, and I become the king of the voiceovers on television, as you probably know, and all that. So, so I'm 50% an actor, and what was your question, David?
Would you do the same thing?
Yes, and so, therefore, I certainly, yes, I would do it. I would do it. I'd do the jump without thinking. I am fearless. I have no fear of that. And, you know, as I said, I think the greatest danger in life, people say, is it not dangerous going to Mount Everest, or is it dangerous when I went to the North Pole? The most dangerous thing in life, I think, is not taking the adventure. I thought what you did was miraculous. I'm all for it. Stretching the frontiers. I think that adventure is the key. And people will always bitch it, and they'll all say he didn't do it. They said Mesner never climbed Everest without bloody oxygen. They said I never got to the top. You know, I haven't hit anybody yet like Buzz Aldrin, you know. You know, but now the other one, what would I do besides the dive?
That was it really. What your views on that were?
I think so. I think so. I think that's miraculous and courageous and wonderful. I'm all for adventure. It makes us alive. As I said, the Everest's everywhere. That's an Everest. Yes, my old son.
Quite rightly, you've said that an awful lot of us have been inspired by science fiction.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a lack of good space science fiction these days?
I think there's a tendency to be cheap. And I think they must remember in films on science fiction that you have to have a beginning and a middle and an end. It's quite simple. If you're writing a book or you're writing a story, you have a beginning, middle and end. You start with that straight away. And they make things rather morbid. That there is, you know, that it is dark, 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 dark. I think there is no doubt at all that, that in space, I mean, when you think of, as you know very well, the trillions and trillions and trillions of galaxies and inestimable planets and so forth, you know, that I think life adapts itself to the conditions, and there are myriads of forms of life. I think that what is in the realm of the imagination with human beings exists. For us, it's a chemical remembrance. When I said we're the children of stardust, of course we're as old as the universe. We're as old as that. Most of our life we have got to remember and wake up. I'm not being Buddhist now, but when Buddha was looked at under the bobo tree, they were staggered by Buddha's face and his eyes. They said, oh, are you a god? Are you a prince? No, 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 no. What are you? He said, I am awake. And it is that awakening that Jesus talks about as Garden of Gethsemane. Could you not stay awake? Awake, he says to the disciples. It is the wake thing that is in all religions. That it's, once we start remembering this eternal memory, we start to remember. I think that we shall, as T.S. Eliot says, we shall not cease from exploration. And the end of our exploring will be to arrive at the place where we started and know it for the first time, which is always implying that life is a remembrance and not a discovery. But you remember, you start to remember. You have peak experiences when separate from school, separate from teachers, separate from, because I mean, you know that thoughts are material. This is, you can't contend that. I mean, all scientists will tell you that all thoughts are material, and so forth. I forgot the point of what I was saying. That, but you know, you pick up the thoughts of your parents, you pick up the thoughts of your school, you pick up all that, and so forth. But who are you? What do you know? Separate from your education. I'm always worried by education at times. That's when I think about space and so forth, new forms of education, in the fact that it's slightly conditioned. That appalling bit of direction from a school teacher. Stop dreaming! Stop looking through the window, stop dreaming. It is there that you start to discover. It is in the dreams and so forth that we start to remember who we are. I think we're vast, and I think that we're going to make it, and so forth. Nevertheless, I think of all the astonishing things, and civilizations far superior, and civilizations far in advance, and multiple dimensions and things like that, there are very much dark alien forces at times who don't like us at all. I think that SETI needs to revise its signals. This is what I do with NASA, you see. I talk like that. What are you talking about? I said, well, we need an SOS. We need to send an SOS out there. We need help. There are more wars than ever. There's more shit going on. There's more cruelty going on. There's more starvation going on. We need help. We can't do it. NATO fails. East-West fails, etc., etc., etc. Our priorities get wrong. I'm not talking to people here. We need help. Send SOS. We need help. Come and help us. Can you help us? But of course, if you think of the Selenites in the first Men to the Moon of Jules Verne, eventually Lionel Jeffries in the film is placed in front of the Selenite king on the moon. And he said, tell us about Earth people. Well, he said, because he's a teacher and a scientist, well, they're fine, really. I mean, we see big marks and smoke sometimes. What's that? Well, we now and again, you know, we've got Shakespeare, we've got Buddha, Jesus, and this, that, and the other, and poets, and this. Well, now and again we have a war. You know, we fight, we kill each other now and again, and then you know, people want power, then somebody else takes over, then there's another war. You have wars. You kill each other. You cannot go back to the earth and tell them about us. We cannot have them here. So I'm just saying is, you know, that in that growth factor as to who we are. But we're going to make it. We need to expand. We're imploding and so forth. But nevertheless, in the universe, I do think there are alien civilizations. You will get now and again the thing from outer space, which of course in that wonderful 81-minute film, the thing was played by James Arness, the sheriff in Gunsmoke, who was 6'9". Please, another question. Yes, a young lady.
You talk about sending the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker in space. How could I go to space? I'm not a scientist. I haven't even got a GCSE in maths.
Well, look, I don't mean to sound this as being marvellous. The young lady says, how can she? Because she hasn't got the qualifications to go into space. But you're here. You have a love of space. A love. I said, there's no one like you. You've got something. In life, what I do, and because there's no one like you, write your own script. If I need to go to Aconcagua, the highest mountain in South America, 23,000 feet, I go to the Director General. I want to see him. I never forget BBC White Ladies. We do the best natural history programs, don't we? We do wonderful Blue Planet and all that. And I was there in Bristol, White Ladies, one day, BBC, and they said, oh, Brian, any ideas about things we might do while you're here? Come have a coffee? Yeah. Why don't you do the first ascent of the Matterhorn, the first ascent of Mont Blanc? I said, just get about 6 climbers, that's all you need, in the same clothes. The 2 of them can be like Alan Hinks, great cameraman. It'll cost you nothing, 2 half-hour programs, be fantastic. Do the whole journey that they did. And so, oh, thanks, Brian. I said, I won't be in it. I said, you know, you go and do it. And so, this is relating to your question. So, about 6 months later I met them and they were virtually in tears. Bristol White Ladies who do Blue Planet. What's the matter? Oh, we said we put the whole thing. We've got the mountaineers. We've got the budget. It's a very small budget. We're going ahead. Everything's marvellous. He said, and some bureaucrat at the BBC Television Centre has cancelled the whole thing. He hates mountains. So, right, have you got a car? Because I'd never. Right, drive me to BBC Television Centre. So they drove me to Television Centre, straight into, let me in. Hello, Brian, come in. Into reception. The receptionist was a lady I'd known in the past, very lovely too. And I met the receptionist. As I said, I want to see the Director General. What are you talking about? Give me 5 minutes. Let him give me Aubrey Singer it was. Give me 5 minutes. Tell him I need... I can't. You can't. It takes months to arrange to meet the director. Get him on the phone! The guards are all round. It's all right, lads. I want to see the Director General. I've got Brian Blessed here. He's being, you know, very forceful. I'm so sorry, Director General, but he says, can he have 5 minutes with you? Go up. So I went up to the 5th floor on Florida Plant, some search and all that. I opened the door and there's Aubrey Singer. So I'm reporting what exactly he said. What in fuck's name do you want? Have you any idea how busy I am? I said, look, you said, I told the whole thing. They've got this and there. They've got BBC White Ladies. They've got this, that, done the best programmes in the world. They've got this 2-half-hour programme. You said you like mountains. When it's an I, Claudius, as Augustus Caesar, you said you liked mountains. I said, these are two very simple, it costs bugger all, Matterhorn. I explained the whole thing. And I said, there's some bastard bureaucrat here that's cancelled the whole bloody thing. He said, Brian, stop. Brian, stop. Tell them. They've got their money. Thank you. Now, bugger off. And I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, one way or another, you work out your own script. Work out your own design. You go and do what you want to do. And hold on. Be careful about telling other people about some of your ideas because they might pinch them. But go and write it down this evening. The things you want to do and start doing it. Go and do it. You want to go in space? Yes. If you want to work with Spielberg, he's a lonely man. If you want to work with Spielberg, he's always dealing with bloody banks and ask crawlers. If you say, I've seen your films all my life. I've always wanted to be in one. Can I just be in a small scene? Can I play a small part? This is not one of those silly letters. It is a definite appreciation of your hard work and what you do and achieve. It would just make my life complete if I could be in one of your films. Shit. You go and see, you'll be in it. Go and write your own script. You've got a script all of your own. Go and do it. No. I'm a C-class boy from Bolton-on-Down Secondary Modern School. My dad was a coal miner. I had to leave school at 14 because my dad was injured so badly in the coal mines. And as an undertaker's assistant, then a plasterer. You can always tell plasterers with their most supple wrists. So you can now see exactly what I mean. And I have a love of life. I have a love of adventure. I want to go meet Zubrin. I'll go in. If I wanted to climb, the first time I climbed Mont Blanc, it was Bonatti. The great Bonatti was a great European climber. You couldn't get near him. I went down there at 16 years of age, 15 years of age, and I went all the bloody way through Europe. I made it down with £7.10. I got to Chamonix, thousands of people, and people said, what are you doing, lad? I said, because wrong clothes. I've come to see Bonatti. I want to climb Mont Blanc with Bonatti. I've read all his books. It's ridiculous. You heard about it. I went through the restaurant, thousands of people all laughing, and there was Bonatti with his blonde hair. Hello? What do you want? So I read all your books. I've come all the way from England. I've hitched my way down here. I came with £7.10. I've got £5 left. I've always dreamt of climbing Mont Blanc with you, because you could get 20,000 quid a week at that time, taking the Americans up, if you wanted to. He'd just done the Drew. His hands were all bleeding. He'd climbed the Drew on his own. How much you got? Give me £3. Your clothes are terrible. I think I can dress you. I'll take you up. And I climbed Mont Blanc with Bonatti, who was the greatest climber in the world at the time. I'm not saying I'm brilliant. I just went to him. Please, I want to. I'll sit outside his door. Peter O'Toole sat out the door of the director of Lawrence of Arabia for a bloody week. Everybody else was playing Lawrence but him. I'm gonna fucking sit here till I die, but I want to play Lawrence of Arabia. Go and fulfill your dream. Follow your dreams and don't let anybody put you off. Anybody can go. You can go into space, you can go to Mars, you can go to Jupiter. You can go. You can be an observer, you can be one who loves it, observe other people. And then work out what talents you've got that might help them.
Okay, we'll have 2 more questions.
Yeah. Who is that man at the back? He looks untrustworthy. Who is he? He's not the head of the space program in America, is he? It's not Zubrin. No, it's not Zubrin.
You've drawn our attention, I think, quite admirably to the fact that I think whatever our age, we've got a future and an adventure ahead of us.
Yes.
And it does remind me of a quote by Einstein, who stated, "You've got to keep pedaling in life or you'll lose your balance." And
yes.
I think that sums it up very well.
You missed my sex life!
But you did miss one little film, science fiction, The Martian Chronicles. They all went to Mars and I think they all decided to come back.
That's right, yes. The Martian Chronicles was wonderful with Rock Hudson, wasn't it? Yes. A particularly marvellous series. I thought that was absolutely a fantastic series. I really did. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for your lecture. Very interesting.
Is it one more question?
Oh, two, God. Two here, for God. Don't be mean on the cheese.
Hi, mine's a suggestion as much as a question.
Yeah.
I've been quite inspired to hear what you say about it's about living and it's not about dying, as it were. It's about what you do. And it's just a suggestion. I know that, and then the question follows on from this. The suggestion is that obviously when you go up to the space station, you'll have an opportunity then to wear, or take something with you that is your own.
Yeah.
And my suggestion would be a white T-shirt with the Flash Gordon bolt of lightning that says "Blessed's alive."
Yes.
Now that's my suggestion for you to take. But the question is what would you take if you weren't to take your T-shirt with my logo and
No, I think I would put the greatest danger in life is not taking the adventure. I'd put that on. But of course, the extraordinary thing is that the Flash Gordon, wherever I go, on scaffolding or in universities, Cambridge University, everywhere, and thousands of students, and Buckingham Palace or anywhere, and scaffolding, because I do all these voiceovers, you'll hear a man on the scaffold say, "Hello, Brian, Shay Gordon's alive into my telephone to me wife." And then the taxi, "Brian, Shay Gordon's alive." So Gordon's alive as a clarion call. I mean, that was a week, not the 9 o'clock news, of which when I tore them all apart and had a wonderful time with them and absolutely terrified both young lads on that and had a wonderful time. I didn't quite, but of course at that time Gordon Brown was the Prime Minister, so I said, "I know you're having a rough time." I jumped on the table. I said, "What can I do with not the 9 o'clock news, you know?" And I just jumped on the table, and there was Merton there and Hislop looking at Christ. "It's me! It's Prime Minister Beardreel, it's me! Prime Minister! Don't forget, Gordon's alive!" And the whole place went into a bloody uproar. And I thought, how can I screw them up? And they're wonderful, because they're two nice lads, Hislop and Merton. They're wonderful. And they were very good about it. And suddenly the Conservative minister, Shadow Minister, Alan Duncan, said, "I've always wanted to be an actor, you know. Of course I'm gay." And I thought, what does gay mean? I mean, everyone is gay. I mean, for Christ's sake, we're over all that. For God's sake, there's no problem with it from the ancient Greeks. And I turned it into prejudice. It was lovely. You know, I said, "Oh, God, I can turn this into prejudice." I said, and he suddenly said to me, interrupted and said, "You know, Brian, I've always wanted to be an actor. I've always been gay." And I said, "You're gay?" I didn't know you were gay. Did you, Paul? Did you know he was gay? So Paul and Hislop, "Did you know he was gay?" And I wouldn't be on the programme if I'd have known that. And I started to pour the water over my head in shock. So I always like to kind of break through and do the most ridiculous things like that. But why can I use it? I'm going to do it again. I've been asked to do another 6, but they're terrified. I should. The Queen said, "You know what?" Because I did the 30-minute version, the 40-minute version, which I won't tell now because it was about toilets on Everest. And the Queen said at Buckingham Palace, "You know, I've never in my life, I've never laughed so much in all my life as we were talking about the toilets." And you said F-U-C-K about 30 times. And she says, "Of course, it's an Anglo-Saxon word. It means spreading of seed." Now, when I meet the Queen, I'm always she hits me. I call her Knuckles because she always hits me, the Queen. "You're far too old to be going up Mount Everest. I'm going to make a royal edict and order you not to go. But you wouldn't go, would you? You wouldn't go." I said, "No, you wouldn't obey me." "No, I'm not going to obey you." And every time I see you, I said, "You're riding a horse without a helmet." You say, "Quite right. Have some respect. I'm the Queen." So I have that kind of relationship with Her Majesty. But she did say to me, you know, I've probably said this, me and the grandchildren, we watch Flash Gordon all the time. It's our favourite film. Would you mind saying Gordon's alive? So I said, Gordon's alive! She said, thank you so much. So, but it has become this extraordinary, it gives great joy to people. All the astronauts, everywhere I go, you know, thousands of people start cheering. Amazing. Was there somebody?
Yeah, well, did you have a chance to interact a lot with Queen, with Freddie Mercury, Brian May, all these guys?
Oh, did I work with Queen?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I mean, of course, what I think is wonderful is the music in Flash Gordon is astonishing. And I think that some of it, particularly where they're unconscious in that rocket ship going through the Sea of Fire, Flash Gordon and Dale and Zarkov, and they're unconscious, and you get Dale resting on Flash Gordon's chest, and they're both perspiring, and they're moving in that rocket, unconscious with the G-force, and the music is sublime. That strange, wonderful strings that you get, it's wonderful. And of course you hear it again when he's going to be gassed. When I think the scene, because you'd seen in Star Wars prior to Flash Gordon, the universe usually had a black sky. But in this one, as Flash is brought on to be gassed in his tight briefs, and you get all these aliens standing there, and all women beating their gentle drums quietly for him to be gassed, behind him the sky turns vermilion and green and chartreuse, churns into different colours. And they did that with a giant aquarium, which I mean, absolutely fascinating. But I mean, what is marvellous about Flash Gordon is that, I mean, everyone says Gordon's alive, of course, and things like that, you know. But when he's about to die, Flash, and the music is wonderful, you get this wonderful music again that I've talked about, they had in the rocket for his funeral, this beautiful music. He's in chains, and Dale comes in, his girlfriend, to see him, and she's dressed in Ming's dress, and so forth. And she's crying, and he said, oh, Dale, it's just a bad dream, Dale. Don't worry, Dale. And he's all chained up, you know. And he said to her, you know, you look great. And she said, oh, that's just the eye makeup. And he's going to be gassed. He's going to be gassed, and she starts talking about her bloody eye makeup. And that is the style of the film. While I'm just on Flash for a second, there were two moments. There was, for instance, you can cast somebody for Voltan, my part. No, it wouldn't be as good as me. But you could get a Voltan. You can find a Ming somewhere. You can find this. You know, I think the right people played the parts. But finding Flash Gordon is difficult. Because say you get Tom Cruise. Well, I'd love Tom Cruise. And he has got a perfect smile and a perfect face. But if you put a camera on Tom Cruise at a certain angle, he looks sinister. And you got anybody, he's got a lovely face and he's a lovely smile, but I put a camera in a certain way and he looks sinister. Or, you know, he has got the most friendly smile and lovely, but I can, you know, he can be the head of the bloody Ming League if you'd shoot him from this side, you know. But Sam Jones walked on, and when you see him meet Ming for the first time in Ming's palace, and Ming says things like, you have come hurling yourself through the void. Who are you, stupid Earthman? You would tremble if you understood the nature of the universe. Who are you? He said, I'm Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. And which is so pure. I'm Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. What a thing to say to Ming the Merciless, you know, this great wizard and great scientist. I'm Flash Gordon, quarterback, New York Jets. The fuck is he talking about? You know, and so there's this, he has this purity. So Sam, whenever you shoot Sam, he looks pure. He's pure. And I came in one day, and I had a wonderful time on that film. Jesus, I had a bloody mar. Chasing the dwarfs all over the place, you know. I acted being the greatest actor. I'm just in my element. The part was made with Dino Laurentiis alongside me, you know. And Dino Laurentiis, everyone's terrified. He's got Dino Laurentiis, the producer. He's got henchmen with him. He's got bloody men with guns. You can see the revolvers as he walks about the studio. Dino Laurentiis, Dino De Laurentiis, who comes along. Hello, kid. You know. And I'm saying, get out my bloody eyeline, Dino. I loved it. Do you know we can't, if you're in the studio, we'll never get any filming done. Everyone's shit scared of you. We'll never get any bloody filming done. Please, fuck off. And okay, kid, no one ever tells me to fuck off. I'm going, kid. And we had this relationship. But the second assistant said to me, it was always lovely, and particularly in Ming's Palace, we're now going to take a close-up of Brian. And, all right, Brian? Yes. And it'd be fair to say, I think Brian agreed, that Brian is in all probability not the best actor in the world, but the best actor in the universe. Isn't that so? Yes, I am, love. The truth will out. I am without doubt the most talented actor I love acting, pretending to kind of, you know, I love insulting Jacoby and Ben Kingsley and everybody saying, oh, their shit. I mean, they've got talent, but I've got sex, love. They don't have my sex. And they all love that. They can't answer me back, you know, and so forth. So I said, so we got Brian here, who is without doubt the greatest actor in the universe. I want all stillness. Is there anything you want, Brian, before we do this close-up? Yeah. Get those fucking dwarfs out of my eye line! Because there's all these dwarfs. There are R2-D2 and Rusty and all of them, and the poor buggers were suffering. So I always made their lives sweet, because they couldn't breathe in these little things. Now, but when Ming died at the end, for your delectation in the film, when the evil Ming dies at the end, he gets the rocket through his stomach, doesn't he? And green blood pours out. It was a Friday afternoon, it was the last shot of the day, and I was an absolute bastard, you know. And I was behind the camera with a cup of tea and a cake, and I had all the 11 dwarfs sat around me, and we're looking at Ming, the camera, as he has this rocket through his stomach and the green blood, oh, and we're behind it. Oh, because there was no sound. Oh, that must be painful. Oh, that must be, oh, isn't that terrible, isn't that terrible? Oh, I can't, is it painful? Trying to do it and laugh. I couldn't see he's almost laughing with the pain. He came up, you fucking bastards, he said as he came up. Because all the dwarfs and me were just kind of looking at him. Of course, he's got a ring around his stomach. And but I just loved having all that fun. It was wonderful. But I mean, but the music, I think, is sensational. And they were lovely people. They were onto it. I think the music is unbelievably brilliant. To have my own theme, Voltan's theme, Voltan, dum dum da 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 dum dum da 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 dum dum, and I dropped a lot of the words in there. I was in the RAF National Service in the parachute squadron at Abingdon, and so as we came down, I made Squadron 40, which was my squadron in the RAF. Squadron 40 dive, you know, and so I kind of put a lot of the dialogue, and I made it Henry V Flash. This is Flash Gordon's day. Follow me. I made it all Henry V, and so forth. But I mean, you see in Batman and films like that and Superman, there's only one man flying usually. Maybe one or two, but usually one. But you had 3,500 people flying. And all the stuff, you had to get the wings ready. And being upside down for a long time, you're lowered onto the ground like that, and then you're lifted up. And I had several on me because of my weight, one my scrotum, and God knows what. If you weren't careful, you're talking like that. And all the just so loud. I could hear all the stuntmen, some of the hardest boxers, and oh, Brian, do it in one take, for fuck's sake. Do it in one take, bro. Fuck. And they hold their heads up, and you couldn't eat. And suddenly, oh, Ross gone, he's unconscious. Lower him down. What happened? And because he'd had lunch, which he shouldn't have had, and it knocked him unconscious. Oh, fucking hell, now we've got to go back home again. It was very, very hard work flying, and so forth. But certainly, you know, you could get thrombosis if you weren't careful. And halfway through the film, my right-hand man, Lauro, you don't see him, do you? Because he got third-degree burns as the special effects explosions. He was to my right, because we have naked legs and arms, and he got third-degree burns on one of his legs. And so that was it. The little guy with the broken nose was an ex-rugby player from Halifax, and I had to give him all his lines. So when he gets wounded on rocket ship Ajax, I say to him, you know, when Flash says, "Bureau, are you all right?" just shout back, "No, he just winged me," because he's got wings. So you get that line. "No, he just winged me." It's like, I can't say, "Yeah, go on, say it, you'll bring the house down." Well, in the cinema, it always brought the house down. So, but it was the most wonderful film. One more question, and then. Yes, this gentleman's been in front getting him blasted. No, this man here. We'll get back to you.
It's a short question, Brian. When you fly to the ISS, do you expect to be the man with the longest beard in space? Or
I'm going to keep the bastard. I'm going to keep the bastard, yes. I'll be the first man in space with a beard. The Russians have agreed to it. You know, they've all agreed to it. It's funny, you know, the way people... You know, it's like, you know, Buzz Aldrin, people say, "Oh, Ian Armstrong," and etc. They've never walked on the moon. You get that all the time. Or Reinhold Messner didn't climb Everest without oxygen, etc. Or you didn't climb Everest, Brian, and things like that. Yeah, what's your question? The beard. And so, you know, and so I'll be kind of going up there without a beard. I was going to say, it's about... telling the truth. Oh, anyway, while you talk about that, and I was caught out the other day for the liar I am, so they thought. I love luring them in, you see. And I said, well, in my training, I, of course, was in the Mir space station with the Russians in my silver suit, etc., etc., etc. And they said, "You are such a bloody liar." See, because the Mir dissolved and was disintegrated in space long before you trained with the Russians. And I said, "Yeah, you got me. Think about it," I said. "They made two. They have one in Space City, in one of their great hangars. They have the second Mir. So I had coffee with the Russians in there. Go Mielton. Remind me about Predator, just before I go. Predator.
You look like you're going to beat John Glenn's record, becoming the eldest person in space. Yes, since he's still with us at, I think, about 90, I wonder if you find that reassuring. And whether going into space, you know, improves your health and makes you live longer.
Well, I just, of course, I mean, you know, I've been 3 times to Everest. And of course, I've done it without been up there. I've never used oxygen, and of course, there's a price to pay. I mean, the first time I did Galahad of Everest, I was there for 20 weeks above 22,000 feet, and there's a change at 5,000 feet. There's a change at 10,000 feet. A change at 15,000 feet. They had a Mont Blanc at 22,500 feet. You've got 14 days to live, and you die, even if you're acclimatized. At 25,000 feet, you've got 4 days to live, and you die. At 28,000 feet, you've got 1 day to live. The lack of atmospheric pressure, shortwave ultraviolet rays, cosmic rays, lack of oxygen, all that. And that's what you mainly die of. And so there's a price to pay. I'd be fair to say the Russians measure me, my blood and everything. The reason why all this has happened, because at the age of 67, you know, to be on the top of Everest at 67, without oxygen, this has confounded NASA and the Russians. So it's boys' own for me. They want to put me in space. So I'm a guinea pig for the whole thing. But I have suffered severe loss of brain cells. You cannot go to Everest older than 53 like I was and go there 3 times, and other great high mountains as well. I've probably lost about 37 million brain cells. Of course, we have trillions of brain cells, and the others take over. So I have actually got a very young brain. That's what NASA have found out, that I've got a very, very young brain. And that we do, you know, each night you lose 7,000 brain cells. If you head a ball in football, you lose 10,000 brain cells. So I've been part of those exercises. And I have blood group AB, which apparently, and lungs are twice the normal size. And this helps me a great deal and so forth. But there's so much in space that they still have to resolve. So when I am with NASA and I'm with the scientists, as I say, I wore the first Martian prototype suit when we made Mission to Mars in which we pretend to climb Olympus Mons. But we were in Reunion Island in the Pacific, and I wore a £7.5 million Martian prototype suit made by Zubrin. All the mountaineers did, and the macrobiologists and Charles Frankel, the geologists, we all wore those things. And we're doing tests with NASA. So they have brains like I couldn't wish to have, you know, and I tease them. But thank God I have the capacity to point out simple things, because they're so brilliant. So we're on. I said, look, the oxygen bottles on the Martian prototype suits are only that big, and they last 2 weeks. The suit that you wear is almost as small as this for Mars, and it's got wires in it, and you don't shit and you don't pee. It extracts that out of your body because you're on Mars. So I'm testing these out. And I said, well, I do think in 7 hours we're going to need oxygen on our little things. And so forth. Well, Brian, they said, Brian, oxygen is so many degrees over there, since the sensor, use your compass. I said, I can't use a compass. You're a mountaineer and you can't use a compass? Yeah. I said, no, there are no magnetic poles on Mars. Jesus Christ! God, we're so busy, God, Brian, yeah. I said, the ropes are all going to fade. They're Kurt Mantle ropes, and don't forget the radiation will rot them. So that's my job. So when they're saying, well, we've got to make gravitational chambers of Saturn, or this, that, and that. I said, this is prehistoric. You all sound prehistoric. This is all the world's greatest scientists. Because I'm not at my age, 76, I haven't got time for all this shite. I'm too long in the tooth. No. Don't forget the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. We need to get into space. You need to kick up the arse. You're all being too slow. You need to get on with it. Find a bollocks to these refined cosmic rays. Find an answer. No, you don't need that. Find an answer to cosmic rays. Find an answer to this. And get on with it. And find better ways of propulsion. And space isn't anywhere near as sickly or as frightening or as difficult as you make out. It's quite easy. And you just sit in your arse instead of having a gin and tonic. Get off your asses and fucking do something about it. I've been waiting since I was bloody 7. And that's the way I talk to them, frequently. Charles Frankel and all that, and Zubrin. The Martian prototype suit that I wore on Reunion Island with Catherine Destavel's suite and our lovely, great kind of headquarters that we were living in with all the other astronauts on Reunion Island. The Martian prototype suits are made by the man who made this costume for Predator. The Arnold Schwarzenegger film? The Predator is a 7'2" man called Peter Hall, like the director. Peter Hall, 7'2" man, and that's the man who made the Predator makes the spacesuits. He's an absolutely delightful man, you know. And as regards this face on Mars, the legendary face in the Cydonia region, because you've got the canal, you've got the Great Valley, you know, and you've got the giant mountains, but over here is the face, and the city, and the town, and the comb, and it looks artificial. And when I talk to NASA about that, oh, Brian, God, I'm not going to fucking talk about that. But when I got them all, I can tell, when I got 1 or 2 of them pissed, they said, well, Brian, all we can say is, this is in Reunion Island, some of the features do look actually artificial. So there's a lot to discover. A lot to discover. One more question? Who's going to ask the final question? Yes, a burning one. You've been nothing but bloody trouble since you came in. I remember you.
I'm always trouble. The thing about Mars, you just set me off on that, because I did my master's degree on Mars. Well, not out there, obviously, but looking at the surface of Mars. So no, I don't think that there's anything artificial. It's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. It looks.
I wish you wouldn't swear. I've never heard swearing. That's terrible, lover. I think you must be more scientific, love. I've not sworn once this evening. You were saying it's what, love?
Statistically, the chance of it being artificial is fairly non-optimal, shall I say then. But no, the thing is, we will tend to want to see human features in everything, or anything human-made, but that doesn't mean that there's necessarily any intelligence there. It just looks the way.
I couldn't agree more. There is a need, isn't there?
No, bollocks to that. I want to go anyway. I don't need to go because I think Martians are there. I want to go for the same reason as you. I want to climb Olympus Mons.
Yes.
Although you've got more chance than me. You're fitter than I am.
No, you can do it. Anybody can do it. Because you can jump 25 feet up in the air. No, it'll be a slow slog up Olympus Mons. No, you can. But I think that, you know, the Sidonia region where the face is, it's be lovely to go there, you know. But the need to find aliens, the need to find other species, is that there's some, you know, in life, we get lonely, but we're not alone. It's for you to remember. You're not alone. No, ask for help. You're not alone. You may feel lonely at times, but you're alone. But I just feel, I couldn't agree more, but there is a definite need, isn't there, that anything that can promote an alien force. You know, I think I was Paul O'Grady, having done his dog program. I have lots of animals that my wife saves and so forth. And Paul O'Grady did a program in America where he saw a family who'd been abducted by aliens. He said, I'm going to go and see him tomorrow. You know, I've got to go and see this family who've been abducted by aliens. He said, oh, bloody bollocks. And I'm going to go and see them. I mean, what I don't understand is these aliens come all the way across the universe at the speed of light to put a probe up somebody's ass. I mean, why would you want to come all this way to put a probe up somebody's ass? And it's, what for you? So, but it is, therefore, as regards the face, Charles Frankel, the great geologist of NASA, when I'm with him, or when I was on Reunion Island, I was constantly pretending for a while that I believed implicitly in the Sidonia region being the city, an enclave, and the face was in line with the Sphinx in Egypt. I'm sure, and he used to go off his bloody, well, for God, for fuck's sake, Brian, to drive him up the bloody wall. I usually say this to him when he was stuck in a gully in his spacesuit and he couldn't get out. I'd talk to him, he said, I'm sure you know, Charles. Look, I can't fucking move, Brian. And he was always at the guy that they can't stand, the scientists who left Area 51, NASA. What's his name? What's the guy who gives all those lectures? Not Denikin, the other one. Thorogood, not Thorogood, what's his name? Who is the NASA guy?
Guy Lazar.
No, the another one. Sounds like Thorogood. His name...
Hoagland.
Hoagland! Now, you know, if I mention Hoagland as Charles Frankel and NASA, they go off their bloody heads and completely lose their temper about it. You know, but he's the one that really drives them up the wall. But there's certainly a need that we want to find other entities in space. It is I mean, Pillinger has it. But I mean, the scientists like Pillinger and people like that, they want to find life, or they want to find traces of life. That's one of their great objectives. I mean, and even Patrick Moynihan in his old age, wheel him around. I'm quite convinced, you know, that many other aliens live in space and so forth. I've come to that conclusion in my life, etc., etc. I think it is interesting that Asimov, who of course was a tremendous scientist as well as a scientist. I'm trying to get your face around here. Who was a tremendous scientist as well as being a science fiction writer who died. I thought he greatly respected by the scientific world. I mean, Zubrin loves his writings, but I don't know the correct estimates. But you take the Milky Way, the kind of trillions of kind of stars, and then the Orion Nebula, etc. And they can work it out quite mathematically, etc., and this, that, and the other, that there are but millions, tens of millions of planets the same size as the Earth, the same distance from a sun similar to our sun. They can work that out. But of course, if you could travel way beyond the speed of light, at the speed of space, when you get there, you'd have to arrive there of course, at the right time. Because, I mean, if you arrived here 3.5 billion years ago, this was a furnace, it's an inferno. The Earth was an inferno. You have to get there at the right time. And it talks about things like that. So, therefore, it's going to be very difficult to kind of latch on to creatures from another world, because you've got to get there at the right time.
You can certainly do the calculation that the Drake equation is the famous calculation that makes it quite obvious that there has to be other life, a lot of life.
And the proof being, of course, is life here, and that life adapts itself to the conditions.
The thing about the Drake equation is you can work out how many eligible girls there are in London using it. You just read it.
Really? Could you give me the formula for that?
I've got it worked out in Excel.
That's absolutely marvellous. No, marvellous. You could take them up Olympus Mons. I mean, intercourse in Olympus Mons is going to be very interesting, isn't it? Well, my sons, anyone one burning last question? Because I can, you know, it's that. But Zubrin, they do tell me, may have perfected at half the speed of light. It's in a bubble, that he's a tremendous scientist. The macrobiologists and the scientists I was on Reunion Island have a tendency to feel that Zubrin oversimplifies, you know what I mean, but that you can go to Mars and get this and get replenished and come back. But many other scientists, I mean, I think Zubrin is you know, I love Pillinger in Britain, and Zubrin's my favourite scientist in America. I just think Zubrin is wonderful. And Golombek, I love NASA. And the Russians are doing an awful lot. They need to get together much, much more. But I think that NASA's terrific. And yes, I love the American scientists. They do have a purity, and they're like wonderful children. They never grow up. Thank you.
Say, Brian, thank you for a brilliant talk.
No, I've not. I've not talked about. My wife said, "For God's sake, don't pretend you're a bloody scientist, or this, that, and the other." You know. But I find that I can get on with scientists. We get on very well. But it is that there are times when they underrate simplicity, and it is that unfortunately you know, that I managed to have the gift for just saying, you're missing that, or you're missing, there's no magnetic poles on Mars, and things like that, and this, that, and the other. And music. I never touched on the fact which the Russians have done the best work on the sun. Some of their rockets that went into the sun discovered all those layers, but they discovered, of course, when you talk about life, and we've just been talking about aliens, of course, the sun, like the blue whales and the whales, sings. On one of its levels, it changes its song. I think it's the 8th level. It changes its song each year. It has an orchestra of sound. And then that orchestra changes its sound. So the sun is alive. And there's so much to discover. But the sun is alive and has orchestras. And that's what the Russians have found out. Have they not? The Russians have found that out. They've done the greatest work, and of course, great work on Venus, you know, that, and so forth.
We've got some BIS gifts for you.
Oh, I never get any gifts.
There's a whiskey glass there.
Oh, wonderful.
And we've got both our society ties.
Oh, wonderful. So I can be as important as him. Yeah. I can sit in the front. Yeah. And be as important as... Oh, great.
Interplanetary, which is the history.
Oh, great. I've never had that.
Had a bit of light reading at bedtime for you.
Oh, wonderful.
But,
I'm very grateful. It's a great privilege to be here. Great privilege.
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
Just one last thing. You talked a lot about people asking you to say Gordon's alive.
Yeah.
Could you indulge us?
Yes.
And say the BIS is alive as loudly as possible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
No, for God's sake. The BIS is alive! It's a pleasure. Pleasure.